NFL unicorns are the rarest athletes, freaks of nature with size, speed, and skill that just shouldn't exist in one body. They're drafted to change franchises and to become legends, but sometimes all that talent means nothing. Because in the NFL, if you can't stay healthy, focused, or prepared, you'll fail fast. And in today's video, these are NFL unicorns that failed miserably, starting with Anthony Richardson. Now, if you took Cam Newton's frame, Lamar Jackson's speed, and Josh Allen's arm, you'd get Anthony Richardson. 6'4", 245 pounds, and a cannon of an arm. Blazing 4.43 speed and infinite potential. Coming out of Florida, he could throw a 60-yard laser on the run, hurdle defenders in stride, and turn broken plays into highlight reels. The only problem was he started only 13 games in college, and he was inconsistent, inaccurate, and incredibly raw. But that didn't stop the Colts from taking the risk and drafting him 4th overall in 2023. In just his first few games, Richardson had fans buzzing. Rushing touchdowns, broken tackles, explosive plays, and truthfully, he looked like the guy. But then, one by one, the injuries started coming. A bruised knee, a concussion, then a season-ending shoulder injury after just 4 starts. When he returned for his second season, he was wildly inaccurate, just completing 47.7% of his passes for 8 touchdowns and 12 interceptions in 11 games. To make matters even worse, in a game against the Texans with the Colts trailing by 10 in the third quarter, Richardson was sacked at the line of scrimmage to force a 3rd and goal from Houston's 23-yard line. And in one of the biggest plays of the game, Anthony Richardson walked over to the sideline because he was too tired. And now yes, his story isn't over yet, but it's not really that promising either. The Colts brought in quarterback Daniel Jones in the offseason, and whether they'll admit it or not, that move screams one thing: doubt in Anthony Richardson. Richardson still has all the tools, but tools mean nothing if you can't stay on the field or develop the craft. And yes, while it might be a little too early to stamp him as a failed unicorn, he hasn't grown, he hasn't stayed healthy, and he hasn't shown the Colts or the league that he's the future of that franchise. So it turns out it takes more than just physical attributes to be an NFL superstar, and no one is a better example of that than John Ross. 4.22 seconds. That's all it took to change John Ross's life forever. In just over 4 seconds, he went from a fringe first-rounder to the talk of the entire football world.
I think that he's a top 16 to 17 pick in the NFL draft. You think of Deshaun Jackson and how dangerous a weapon he is. Well, here's a guy with all the ball skills that Deshaun Jackson has and more speed. That's scary.
And well, that's because he blazed through the 40-yard dash at the 2017 NFL Combine, and he didn't just impress scouts, he broke the all-time record. And from there, the Cincinnati Bengals were absolutely sold on him. They took Ross 9th overall in the 2017 NFL Draft, ahead of players like Patrick Mahomes, Marshawn Lattimore, Deshaun Watson, and TJ Watt. And why not? In college, Ross was more than just fast. He scored 18 total touchdowns in his final season at Washington. He could return kicks, burn corners, and turn short catches into home runs. But in the NFL, it doesn't matter how fast you are if you can't stay on the field. And from the moment Ross arrived in Cincinnati, it felt like his career was completely cursed. Game 1 of his rookie year, 1 carry, 1 fumble, 1 injury. That was it. He was benched the very next week and wouldn't catch a single pass all season long. By year 2, fans were already calling him a bust. And that's the thing though too, Ross had his moments. He once started a season with back-to-back 100-yard games. He scored 7 touchdowns in just 8 games in 2018. Like, there were flashes where he looked like a receiver everyone expected. But that's the thing, flashes aren't enough when you're a top 10 pick. Ross battled through shoulder injuries, knee surgeries, hamstring tears, you name it. And every time he showed promise, it felt like something either his body or his coaches held him back. In total, John Ross spent 4 years in Cincinnati, where he finished with 51 catches and 10 touchdowns. After the Bengals let him walk, he signed with the Giants in 2021, and once again, there were flashes. He had a couple of big catches, including a 52-yard touchdown against the Saints, but it never stuck. He was buried on the depth chart and then forgotten. In 2023, he quietly walked away from football, but just 1 year before Ross entered the league, another unicorn was drafted, this time a quarterback. Carson Wentz. At 6'5", 240 pounds with elite mobility and a massive arm, he had all the tools you dream of in a franchise quarterback. The Eagles traded a boatload of picks to move up and take Wentz second overall. Wentz was on an MVP tear in 2017. 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, highlight after highlight. He was running the offense like a veteran, making clutch throws, ducking defenders, and giving the Eagles the best record in the league. He was the MVP frontrunner until everything came crashing down.
Flag is down and Wentz in for the touchdown, but a flag thrown.
But worse than that, he tore his ACL, and just like that, his season was over. The Eagles still went on to win the Super Bowl with backup Nick Foles, but the legend of Wentz, the unicorn quarterback who could do it all, was already starting to collapse. Wentz came back shaky. He wasn't the same mover in the pocket, his mechanics were off, and his decision-making got worse. By 2020, it all fell apart. Wentz led the league in interceptions with 15 and sacks taken with 50, and that was in just 12 games. He looked completely broken. The Eagles benched him for a second-round rookie named Jalen Hurts, and suddenly Wentz's Philly chapter was over. He then went to Indy, then Washington, but the magic was gone. But no quarterback is a better example of a failed unicorn than Johnny Manziel. Yes, Mr. Football himself. No player walked into the NFL with more swagger or more chaos than Johnny Manziel. At Texas A&M, he was absolutely electric. He won the Heisman Trophy as a freshman, the first to ever do it. But behind all the headlines were red flags just flapping in the wind. His pre-draft interviews were an absolute mess. His commitment was questionable and his ego out of control. But in 2014, the Cleveland Browns did not care. They needed a savior. I mean, it was pretty clear from day one too that Johnny Manziel wasn't ready. He didn't study film, he didn't respect the playbook, and he didn't put in the work. He showed up late, missed meetings, got caught partying a lot, Vegas trips, bottle service, Instagram stories that said more than any post-game presser ever could. In his first career start, he went 10 for 18, 80 yards, 2 interceptions, and 0 points. The Bengals absolutely crushed the Browns 30-0, and Manziel looked completely overwhelmed. He played just 14 games over 2 seasons, 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and a 57% completion rate. And by 2016, just 2 years after he was drafted, he was out of the league completely. He did try making comebacks in the CFL, then he tried his luck in the AAF, and he eventually made headlines with a Netflix documentary, but by then, the damage was done. Like, we were calling the dude Johnny Football, more like Johnny No More Football. But that's the thing too, he wasn't just a bust, he was a lesson. That talent, fame, and confidence mean nothing if you don't put in the work. But don't worry, because Manziel isn't the only unicorn to have an off-the-field issue. Now, there was a moment when Justin Blackman looked like he was going to be one of the best receivers in football. He was strong, explosive, he could win jump balls, snap off routes, bulldoze defenders, and make acrobatic grabs in traffic. At Oklahoma State, he won back-to-back Biletnikoff Awards, which are given to the best college receiver, putting up over 3,300 yards and 38 touchdowns in just 2 seasons. He then averaged over 100 yards per game for his entire college career. Like, that is pure dominance. So when the Jacksonville Jaguars traded up to take him 5th overall in the 2012 NFL Draft, it felt like the right move. But here's the thing about unicorns. They don't always break down physically. Sometimes it's something much deeper. And for Justin Blackman, it was never about talent. It was about addiction. Before he even played a snap, Blackman was arrested for DUI twice, once in college and once again just weeks after being drafted. In his rookie year, despite shaky quarterback play and a rough offense, Blackman showed flashes of stardom. He dropped a 236-yard, 1-touchdown game against the Texans, and he finished the season with 865 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like, that's not bad for a 22-year-old in a bottom-tier offense at all. But the off-field issues never stopped, and they weren't minor. In 2013, Blackman was suspended for violating the NFL substance abuse policy, and he played just 4 games that season, but in those 4 games, he had 29 catches for 415 yards and a touchdown. Like, to put that in perspective, that's a 1,600-yard pace over a full season. But after another violation later that year, Blackman was suspended indefinitely, and he never played another snap in the NFL. From 2014 to 2016, the Jaguars held out hope. They never released him, they left the door wide open, waiting to see if he would return. However, reports came out that he had entered rehab multiple times. There were more arrests, more missed chances, and more reminders that this wasn't just a football problem. Blackman's story is different from most busts. He didn't fail because of injuries, he didn't fail because he couldn't play, he failed because he couldn't escape the grip of addiction. And truthfully, that's what makes it so much harder to talk about. If you watched him in college or saw those few games in Jacksonville, you know he could have been so much more. It really does just show how sometimes the most surefire prospects aren't guaranteed. And Trent Richardson proved that yet again. By the time Trent Richardson left Alabama, people were calling him the next great running back. Hell, they were even calling him the next best running back prospect since Adrian Peterson. He was 5'9", 230 pounds of pure muscle, ran a 4.4, and had legs built like tree trunks. So when the Cleveland Browns drafted him 3rd overall in 2012, fans believed their curse was over. And well, at first, it looked like they might have been right. Richardson rushed for over 950 yards and 11 touchdowns as a rookie, while also adding 51 receptions. But the weird thing about Richardson was the more you watched, the more things felt off. He danced too much behind the line, he missed wide open holes, he was explosive in theory but sluggish in execution. Then in just his 2nd year, something happened that never happens to top 3 picks. The Browns traded him. After just 17 games, Cleveland sent Richardson to the Colts for a 1st-round pick. At the time, people were absolutely stunned. Why would you trade a guy with that much talent? But soon enough, the answer became obvious. He wasn't that guy. In Indy, Richardson fell off an absolute cliff. Like, even behind a better offensive line with Andrew Luck as his quarterback, Richardson couldn't produce. He averaged just 3.1 yards per carry, and the Colts gave him every opportunity and got nothing in return. By year 3, he was on his 3rd team, and by year 4, he was completely out of the league. That just goes to show that the NFL is an entirely different beast than college. Because after all, talent doesn't guarantee success. Being a freak athlete might get you drafted, but it doesn't mean you'll last. And well, that's the truth about unicorns. They're rare for a reason. Most of them don't survive. Being built different doesn't matter if you break under the pressure.